All right. Thanks, Adam, for being here with me. Excited to talk a little bit about your passion, working with teenagers and getting to know you a little bit more. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we've talked about kind of offline that I thought would be great to share is tell me a little bit about how you understand our world, our culture, like kind of today's society that we live in, and what is it about our environment now here in 2020 that can make it like tough for teens these days? What do you see happening?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, obviously, at the time of recording, we're still kind of living in the middle of COVID-19, and
Right.
people are still, trying to navigate life that way. And as school starts, it's starting a little bit differently for most teens and adolescents. And so that's a difficulty in and of itself. But, I think about this current culture and the state of the times are difficult, not only for adults, but also for adolescents and children. We see, in the midst of globalization and the economy, lots of moves, lots of changes, children and teens changing schools, towns, jobs, churches.
Right.
We see parents, going through the difficulty of divorce and what happens to the family when that happens. Obviously puberty happens in adolescence, and then just a general increase in busyness in our culture,
Right.
and
Right.
add that with some cultural norms and stereotypes that kids are kind of pressured into fitting into. There's a lot thrown at kids these days.
There really is. There's a lot of transition they have to go through, a lot of changes that are coming their way, and it can be really, really tough. Tell me, so like when we think about the teenage life kind of on the inside, their internal world, their emotions, their mindset, their attitudes, the way they choose to behave. Talk to me a little bit about that, and what is it that parents really need to understand, as they're raising adolescents and teenagers. Kind of obviously they want their health and well-being. What do they need to be kind of knowing about the teens' inner world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's at least three really important things to remember, because those years are very hard to navigate. I think the first one is that the separation of the teen and the parent is a natural occurrence. You know, Friction starts to happen, and that can be very difficult, but it's also part of the natural process of teens moving on. That doesn't make it easy. It just makes it a
Yeah,
reality that can help us.
it's hard as parents, right? We
Yeah.
love our kid. We don't want our kid to grow up, or at least part of us doesn't.
Yeah, I think about my 4-year-old and
Mhm.
2-year-old all the time, and I tell them, "You guys have to stop growing up, stay the way you are." But, that's a natural part of life. I think, some other really important things to remember are number 2, the brain, what we call the prefrontal cortex is not, fully developed. It's not developing in the same way as another region of the brain, the amygdala is. And so those fancy terms just tell us that there's not a lot of logical thought happening.
Right.
That part of the brain is not firing on all cylinders yet, but the pleasure seeking part of the brain is the kind of the danger part, the feelings part. And so match that with the hormones that are going on. Oftentimes you hear a parent, or maybe in pop culture, say, "What were you thinking when you did that?" And biologically, they probably weren't thinking a lot, because that part of the brain is not quite fully developed yet. There's a kind of a long ways to go, actually, in regards to prefrontal cortex development. So parents need to know that, while that doesn't give an excuse for any type of behavior by any means, it's just another kind of a piece of knowledge that lets us, be patient, to be understanding, and help them work through this time of development.
Right. Those are good words. Those are
Yeah,
really good
and then
words.
I think the another kind of a last thing just to hit on here is, a graphic that I really come to love is something called the anger iceberg. And kind of the concept of that graphic, you see an iceberg, and the tip is a small percentage of it, but there's this big portion at the bottom that we can't see. And the whole idea is that anger, not always, but sometimes is manifest as a secondary emotion, which means that it's not the main thing that our teens and adolescents are feeling, but it's coming out as the manifestation of something like hurt, fear, low self-esteem, pain. And so all we see is the anger, and
Right.
that sometimes makes it difficult to respond to, because human beings respond to anger sometimes with anger.
That's right. And that's exactly right. That makes sense. It's tricky, when we see anger, we're not really sure what's going on. And
Yeah.
that can cue up our own kind of reaction too, which, though we might mean well, makes it more difficult for our child or our teen. This is really, really helpful to understand all that about kind of the inner life. Um, Tell me this, we know also I've worked with a lot of teens. I know you have also, and we both know, man, they've got such strengths and assets and abilities to cope in this kind of world that we're in. And it's easy to talk about the problems, but tell me a little bit about what you've learned. Are there kind of growing opportunities for teenagers, and how do parents ultimately kind of enhance that and foster that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, us as humans in general have been created with a great deal of resiliency. And I think in the teenage years, there's a lot of grace in that resiliency as well, where they may come through difficult things, but they're all a lot of them can be at least phases of learning and stepping stones onto becoming, the adult, a really great adult.
Right.
And so, we know that research shows us, and just life experience, that a certain level of stress is actually what we need to grow. And so all of these growing pains that are happening, whether it be parent-child conflict, struggles with peer groups, pressures to conform to the culture, all these things are actually the cause of growth. I think when parents can come alongside and other professionals and help really be the scaffolding. I like that model of scaffolding, to where you're
Hmm.
allowing, the child or adolescent to kind of experience these things with the support to help them navigate those kind of difficult waters.
Yeah, like we kind of come around them
Yeah,
as a support to allow them to kind of grow. They're still
exactly.
doing the growing themselves,
Right.
but there is a role for that. Yeah, that's a helpful metaphor. Actually, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about teenage counseling. When counseling is appropriate for teenagers, like what does that look like? How might that be different from counseling that adults go through?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, I think that if you're not really familiar with counseling, you may have seen it in movies, and it may just someone talking to someone else or laying on a couch, and kind of seem cold and distant.
Right.
Um, and obviously, counseling is partly talk therapy, but I think with adolescents, we take a little bit more of a hands-on approach, understanding their developmental level, understanding their personality, their character, and there's a lot of cool things that we do that can help them kind of become more aware of their feelings and kind of what's going on in their heart and their mind. Sometimes we'll do some games or some activities that are really helpful to bring that out. We can bring in some music to kind of read through some of the lyrics and talk about some of the emotions that are happening, and then art projects as well. And so if you're a parent or your child considering doing some counseling, I think the most important thing to know is that we're never just going to ask your child to sit in a room silent and spill their heart to us.
Right.
There's a great deal of rapport building and relationship happening, and for me, I like to be goofy and get down to their level, and
Yeah.
build a relationship, because there's a lot of trust that goes into counseling, and that relationship is just so important.
Right. We know that as counselors, that's like top priority in our,
Yeah.
the first several sessions is all about really creating an alliance and building rapport. And if that looks different for kids, no one teenager is the same, and some might enjoy art or games, and others might not. They might want to talk, and we do whatever we need to kind of create a sense of safety and a sense of trust. Um, So what if a parent kind of knows their kid is struggling, like they're seeing that more and more? They're just not sure if counseling is the best kind of approach. And we've talked a lot as well. Like we don't believe counseling is the end all be all, like the sole answer for people. It's a helpful tool at times, but like when you're doing any kind of work, you need to know when to use the right tool and what tool to pick up. What would you tell a parent? They're seeing a kid struggle. They're just not sure if counseling's kind of right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think being in that position is difficult. Um, Parenting is difficult, knowing which direction to lead your children and what they may need and what things they can overcome with a little bit of your help and what they may need greater help for. That is a challenge, and so I think our
Right.
hearts go out to that challenge and try to help with difficulty in that time. But I would say probably a tangible thing to do, here at Wellspring, we have a great intake coordinator. And, if you're wondering if you should pursue counseling for your teen or child, a great thing to do is just call, kind of
Right.
start the conversation. And that's really the beginning of a possible relationship, of saying kind of, this is what's going on, getting some guidance. And then, sometimes trying it out for a few sessions is helpful to see, is this what we need? Sometimes it's just a few sessions is what is needed to kind of move forward in life. And then also, here at Wellspring, our first session, we always have a consultation with parents. So
Right.
the first thing we're going to do is we're going to establish that relationship with the parents and gain information and build that relationship so that they feel comfortable with who we are, and we can gain a sense of who their family is as well.
I joke sometimes with parents and teens, like there's no counseling police. You're allowed to come once, and that's all. If it doesn't feel like a good fit, or if it seems that it's not going to help, that's okay. We want to be helpful if we're helpful.
Yes.
Um, and I do love that about our practice, that we really prioritize parents. We value their perspective. We want to know what it's like for them to live with their teen. We want to know what they're seeing. And honestly, it's the least awkward and the most helpful thing to do is to have a session where the teenager's not even in the room that first
Mhm.
time. And we
Yeah.
can really understand kind of the lay of the land from the parent's perspective and to know their goals. So I love that. I love what you're saying. Well, we're so glad you're a part of our team. Glad you're here. We're excited to continue to get to share you with our clients and with those who know us. And the best way, if you're looking to contact Adam, is just to reach out through the website.
Yeah.
His bio is there, and there'll be a way that he can send him a message. Adam, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I don't think so. I'm really excited to be a part of the team, and look forward to serving our community and helping in any way that I can as a counselor in training.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for being here. Excited to continue to get to know you and to share you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye bye.